I stood there, staring at the polished mahogany coffin, my heart pounding louder than the priest's voice. The air inside the chapel was thick with perfume, lilies, and lies. I thought I knew everyone here, until the doors opened, and a woman I'd never seen walked in, holding the arm of a teenage boy and a girl who looked barely 16. They went straight to the front row, right next to my mother's seat, like they belonged there. The whispers started instantly, but my world had already gone silent. The woman looked at my father's coffin and whispered, "Goodbye, honey." Honey. That single word shattered everything I believed about him. My knees trembled, and I gripped the pew to stay upright. My father wasn't just gone. He'd been living a whole other life. And I had just met his other family at his funeral. What would you do if you found out your dad had a whole other family, and you met them at his funeral? Would you confront them or walk away in silence? Tell me in the comments. Before that day, my life was painfully ordinary, almost picture perfect. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, in a modest white house with a picket fence where my mom, Linda Carter, made pancakes every Sunday and my dad, Richard Carter, read the newspaper by the window. He was charming, always dressed sharply, and everyone admired him. To me, he was more than a father, he was my hero. He taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with school projects, and told me that no matter what, family always comes first. Funny how those words sting now. When I left for college, we drifted apart. He said work kept him busy, and sometimes months would pass without a call. Mom never questioned it. She just smiled and said, "That's how men are." But I noticed things like how he avoided photos, or how his phone would buzz late at night with messages he'd quickly hide. Still, I never imagined this. At the funeral, when the priest mentioned Richard Carter, a loving husband and father of 4, my stomach twisted. 4? I was his only child, or so I thought. Then the woman, Melanie Brooks, stepped forward with her kids, Ethan and Lila, eyes red but faces familiar in a haunting way. That was the moment my entire childhood collapsed. My dad hadn't just lied to us. He'd built another world, and we were never supposed to find it. For days after the funeral, I felt like I was living inside someone else's life. Every memory of my father twisted into something darker. The bedtime stories, the birthday gifts, even his laughter. All of it felt fake now, rehearsed for one audience while another sat waiting somewhere else. Mom barely spoke. She just cleaned the house over and over, as if scrubbing away the years he'd spent lying to us. I tried to be strong for her, but every time I looked at Dad's picture, I wanted to scream. Then came the worst part, the other family wanted to meet us. Melanie Brooks called me first. Her voice was gentle, almost apologetic. "Harper, I think we should talk," she said. "Richard loved you very much." I laughed. Loved me? My dad loved keeping secrets. Still, I agreed to meet. Curiosity, maybe rage. I'm not sure which one won. We met at a quiet cafe. Melanie looked tired, older than her age, and her kids, Ethan and Lila, couldn't even look me in the eye. She told me she'd been with my dad for over 15 years. 15. Which meant while he was attending my school plays, he was probably rushing to them right after. He spent holidays alternating between families, pretending to be the perfect man in both worlds. I wanted to hate Melanie, but part of me pitied her. She was betrayed, too, just in a different way. Still, when she mentioned Dad's will and how she hoped everything would be divided fairly, something inside me snapped. He'd not only split his heart, he'd split his legacy. That night, lying awake, I realized grief had turned into something sharper. I didn't just want answers anymore. I wanted justice for my mom, for me, and for every lie we'd ever swallowed with a smile. The next week, the lawyer handling my father's estate, Douglas Finn, called. His tone was professional, but there was something hesitant in his voice when he said, "Harper, I think you should be present at the reading of the will." That one sentence told me everything I needed to know. There was going to be trouble. I started digging through old boxes in the attic, searching for anything my dad left behind. Letters, bank slips, photos of anything. What I found wasn't just painful, it was enraging. Bank statements addressed to Melanie Brooks. Deposits matching the exact time Mom struggled to pay medical bills after her surgery. My father had taken care of them while we barely scraped by. I copied everything. Every check, every hidden account. Mom didn't know what I was planning, and I didn't tell her. She didn't need to. Because when the time came, I wanted justice to speak louder than my anger. I didn't want revenge that looked messy. I wanted it to look official. And the perfect opportunity was coming. The day my father's will was read. The day of the will reading felt like walking into a courtroom where the judge was fate itself. We gathered inside a dark-paneled office, Mom and I on one side, Melanie and her kids on the other. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Douglas Finn, the lawyer, cleared his throat and opened the folder. His voice echoed as he began reading. According to the last will and testament of Richard Carter, every word made my stomach twist. My father had left almost everything, his life insurance, his business shares, even the lake house, to Melanie Brooks and her children. My mother's name wasn't mentioned once. Not even mine. Melanie's lips curled into a quiet, relieved smile. That's when I stood up. Actually, I said, sliding a thick envelope across the table, there's something you should see before we call this final. Douglas opened it. Inside were copies of the hidden bank records, signed transfer documents, and a series of payments from my father's business to an account under Melanie's name. Money taken illegally from my mother's joint savings. The lawyer's eyes widened. Melanie froze. Mr. Finn, I continued calmly, those funds weren't his to give. Which means this entire will might be invalid. Silence. Ethan and Lila exchanged nervous glances, and Melanie's face drained of color. Douglas adjusted his glasses. If these documents are verified, Harper, you're right. The will can't stand. For the first time, I saw real fear in Melanie's eyes. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just gathered my papers and said, my father may have lied to everyone, but the truth, well, it's still mine to keep. As I walked out, I finally felt something I hadn't in weeks, control. In the days that followed, news of the will dispute spread quietly through our town. People whispered at the grocery store, at church, even at the coffee shop where I used to go with my dad. Everyone had an opinion, but for once, I didn't care. Mom and I stayed silent through it all. She never asked for revenge, but when she found out what I'd done, she simply held my hand and said, "You did what I couldn't." That one sentence broke me. Because I hadn't done it for money. I'd done it to prove that our pain mattered. For years, I believed my father's version of love was real. Now I understood. Sometimes love and lies wear the same face. His betrayal taught me something brutal but freeing. That truth doesn't destroy you. It just strips away what was never meant to last. I didn't hate him anymore. I pitied him. He died trying to live two lives and ended up losing both. My revenge wasn't about ruining Melanie or embarrassing anyone. It was about reclaiming my story, the one he tried to bury under his secrets. And in the quiet that followed, I realized something else. Closure isn't given. It's taken, piece by piece, truth by truth, until you can finally breathe again. 6 months later, life finally began to feel real again. The court confirmed what we already knew. The will was invalid. My father's assets were split fairly between both families, but Mom finally received what she deserved, both legally and emotionally. It wasn't about the money. It was about respect, about truth finally standing taller than deception. I moved to Portland shortly after, starting a new job in social work. Maybe it was my way of making sense of pain, helping others heal from theirs. Some days, I still think of him. I wonder if he ever felt guilty while living that double life, or if he convinced himself he was protecting everyone by lying. Melanie never reached out again, and I didn't expect her to. I don't hate her. I just don't owe her anything. She has her version of him, and I have mine. Mom smiles more these days. We planted a small tree in our backyard in his memory, not to honor what he did, but to remind ourselves that even broken roots can grow something new. Standing under that tree one evening, I whispered, "You didn't win, Dad." But I finally did. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger in my voice, just peace. My revenge wasn't loud. It didn't destroy anyone. It simply gave me back my power, my truth, and the chance to live a life that's finally mine. Sometimes, revenge isn't about hurting the people who wronged you, it's about finding yourself again after they break you. I used to think knowing the truth would destroy me, but it did the opposite. It freed me. My father's lies taught me that family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by honesty, by the people who choose to stay when the truth gets ugly. If you were in my place, would you want to uncover the truth, even if it shattered everything you believed in? Tell me in the comments. And remember, sometimes peace doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from finally knowing.